Right, now then, lamination, starting with the rudder. What you need to do, if you can get yourself a balsa stripper like this, get yourself some 3mm balsa in a sheet, and then use the balsa stripper just like this. Okay, and that will allow you to make a 3 by 1mm strip. Okay, now do 3 of these, wet them down and let them soak a little bit, 3 of them, then get some UPVA glue, which I did have, oh here it is, or some wood glue, whatever. Cut it to 500mm or 50 centimetres, glue that bit, put another piece on top, glue that bit, put another piece on top, make sure it's all nice together. You get a foam board, you take a sample of the drawing, which you can photostat just to make it easier, you don't want to wreck your drawing. Use my copy paper, place it on top of the foam board, trace it round. And with your wetted laminate, you just bend it round, okay? And the offcuts you don't throw away, you keep the offcuts to the foam board and you place them the other side. Now, when you cut, no sorry, I should rephrase that. When you draw around the rudder and the horizontal stabilizer, you go on the inside of that drawing, not the outside, the inside, because that's the shape you want. Place it on some ply, use some cling film so the wood doesn't stick to the, or the balsa doesn't stick to the ply. Use some Vaseline, okay, and put it inside the edge, you know, the edge of the foam, so that the balsa doesn't stick to the foam. Do the same with the outer edge. Put them in, pin it in place, and then let it go off. Tomorrow morning, that'll be dry tomorrow morning. Now with the wing tips, you obviously have to make 4. Now with the wing tips, it's the same thing. You cut your strips out. Can you see that? Cut your strips out. Use a carbon paper, draw around the wing tip. I've got the wing tip here. Let's have a quick look. I've got an example anyway. Yeah. This is the opposite wing tip. Carbon copy it onto the foam and cut out the inside edge. Use your wetted laminate, offer it up, and then put the offcut back, and that will shape that to the correct shape of the wingtip. Now on this example, I'm experimenting a little bit, because at this point here, I'm raising that up. So what I've done, I've put some 3mm squared spruce there underneath to raise that up, to give that a curve, okay, because the model has a curve here, and I'm presuming that's for washout, so the underneath will be curved like this. Okay, and do one, make sure it's right, and then just copy it another 3 times. 2 for the right hand, then flip that over to give you the opposite side, which would be the port side or the left side. Okay, so I've marked it leading edge, LE, TE, trailing edge, and that will stand you in good stead. And that should be, well, it's nearly dry now actually, that should be okay by tomorrow morning. I'm just going to leave it like that. If you feel as though you have enough plywood to dedicate to this, you could make all 4 of these tips up, but if you get it wrong, you've done it wrong 4 times. So I'm doing this now to see how it turns out, and if it turns out okay, I'll do another 3, but I'm not going to do more than one go. Let's see how these turn out in the long run. Then we have to do the elevators as well, and I'm just getting these out of the way now, so that I can, because I think what I may do is I may start with the bottom wing so I can make sure that I get the fuzz in place, make sure it fits all in place. Okay, so we'll leave it at that for now, and see how we get on. Alright, cheerio. So what am I doing next? Well, in preparation for the build of the aircraft, I have photostated the wingtips purely because the plan is too large to be manhandled around. And you'll see on here, pack 1.5 millimeters, tips of 4 laminates of 1 millimeter by 4 millimeter, 25 centimeters long. Pack 3 millimeters to give curve to tip. Now I didn't understand that at first, and I suddenly realised what they meant. So I got some 3mm hard balsa here, and I put a little curve in it. So I put that curve there. Now I did use the copy paper, and I copied that inner shape of the wingtip there. So now we get some 1.5mm strips of balsa. Got to wet that down, or glue them together, wet them down, put them around this edge here, put that 3mm bridge in there, okay, and let it dry. So you'll get the wingtip coming round up in a bridge and then around here, and this is for washout, and this helps to stabilise the wingtip. So what I'm going to do now, let me just move the camera. I have a washing up bowl, I have a jug of warm water, okay, and I'll put that in there like that. I'm now going to put in the laminate pieces and let them soak for a little while. Okay, now these are pretty thin, so they're going to be quite malleable anyway, but you want to soak them. And then what I'll do, I'll lay them in and PVA them together. You can PVA them together first, it's your personal choice. It's just I'm doing it this way, just to see how it turns out. And as I said, I've never had to laminate a wingtip before, so this is new for me, so we'll see how it turns out. Now you've got to do 4 wingtips, so if you want to, you can set this up 4 different times and have all these going off at the same time. I'm not going to do that because I don't want to go out buying ply and just to use it once and then probably discard it for 6 months and find out it's gone rotten or something. So that's what we're doing with the wingtips, and as soon as I've put that together, I'll come straight back. Okay, so we have 4 pieces wetted, laminated, PVA'd, together. This is still wet, okay, and this has got to go around here like this. So what we're going to do, oh, I've got some cling film, by the way, on the board. And there is something I've forgotten to tell you. We'll get through this bit first. So we'll start putting some pins in. I'm not using the normal pins that most people are using because I want these to hold down. Just get the use of the hammer. Now this is where the camera is going to vibrate a little bit. Okay, hold them down. Don't forget they've got the bridge here. Okay, and this will bend quite freely. All right. Oh, this has come adrift. Don't forget this is all still very wet. Right, there we go. Push it in as far as I dare with my fingers. Little tap. There you go. That's not quite behaving there. To lift that up a little bit. There you go. There you go. Because of that bridge, you see. Okay. And we're coming down the other side of the bridge and around. Like so. Just so it's touchy, you don't want it to damage anything. So need to make sure all those laminations are together. Right. I'll just put some more pins round. Keep that against the foam board. The thickness of the foam board is 5mm. Okay, and this is 4mm, so it should be more than adequate to do what it's got to do. Okay, so that's only just like slightly touching. These pins are just slightly touching. I'm not hammering them down onto there. And I'm going to leave this overnight. We'll see how it turns out. Just got to make sure that they are all level. And what's throwing everything out really is that bridge. But it seems to be okay. See how that turns out. Now what I forgot to show you is this little tool here. This is a balsa stripper. So if you can't get from your model shop your strips of 1mm or 1.5mm and you need them to be 4mm wide, buy yourself some 4mm thick balsa, sheet balsa, get yourself a balsa stripper, set it to whatever it is you need to set it to. Okay, there is another way of doing this. You can use you can mount this on a board, a melamine board, and you can basically, this is the wrong way around. You just hold it like that. I'm sorry, my hand's in the way, but you basically go like that. And just as an example, that's how you cut them. You just do it all the way along evenly, and that's how you get your strips. Now, you know, this can be adjusted, you know, I think up to 1/2 inch. I've never had to use 1/2 inch. Every turn I think is 1/32 of this dial here, so that takes it at 1/32, and I've got it set at 1.5. So that's how you get your strips of balsa. So if you're doing, I don't know, your Keelcraft or your what's that one that's the chipmunk one, I've done it, oh, the SE5A one. It'll come to me in a second or two. Guillows, you want guillows, you need stringers. Well, you buy the appropriate thickness of wood and you just make your stringers. Okay, all you got to do is just keep your fingers away from the blade. These are about £10 ish. This is called the Master Air Screw Balsa Stripper, and I've marked on there 1 turn 1/32, 4 turns 1/8. Yeah, it's a handy little tool to have. You don't use it very often, but you're glad of it when you need it. Okay, and you just put a number 11 blade in, and it just goes in like that. Okay, so that's what I forgot to show you. There is another type of balsa stripper. If I'm doing longer strips that are thicker, this is a Slack blade. This runs in a aluminium channel. You put a melamine board, but I just haven't got that out at the moment, but I'll probably be using that again later on this model. So that's a Slack. They're about £24, a bit more up the market, but they're pretty good. So here we are then. This is what you should have. This is your foam board. This is 5mm thick. This is your laminate. There's your laminations. You put your bridge in here, so you get that bridge going on there, and you just let that dry overnight. And you've got to do this twice for the starboard wing, and then you flip it over and do the port wing, and then we have to do something similar for the rudder, and I think the horizontal stabilizer, and then you just, you know, and it's all stuck together, you round it off, sand it all off. So yeah, it's everything is prep. I'm all with prepping and getting your ducks in a row, so when you need it, it's at hand. You haven't got a nearly fully completed wing there, and you think, oh, I've got to make the tips now. Make the tips now. You got them then. They're ready. They're ready to go. Okay. Like I said, you know, you can make 4 of these, or 2 for the one hand and 2 for the other hand, to save time. But if you're not in a rush and you don't want to go out buying ply boards and making things like that, you know, you just use the same template 4 times. There you go. It's up to you, your personal preference. So there you go, and we'll let that dry and we'll see how that turns out. Have you ever heard the expression a carbon copy? You've probably heard it here and there. Oh, he's a carbon copy of his old man, he is, or that's a carbon copy of this or a carbon copy of that. Well, you ever thought about where that expression comes from? Well, I'm going to tell you. Got to grab it. Carbon copy paper. This is what us old people used to use before we had computers and stuff like that. So this is carbon copy paper. You'll notice it has writing and things on one side, and it's blank the other. So you need it this way up. Now, why am I talking about this? Well, I'll tell you for why. Because in preparation for making a model from a plan rather than a kit, you have to make something, and I've forgotten the word for it now. Not a jig. a pattern. Now you may have heard me use this expression in other videos with other models. You have to make a pattern. Now Mr. Cliff Harvey will take this and put it in his scanner, and he'll scan it and he'll cut out a piece of paper. Okay, I don't do that unless I have to, because I like doing it the old-fashioned way, and I'll tell you for why. Because if you take your ribs, okay, which you have to cut out via the plan, okay, you're going to need a pattern to draw around onto your balsa, which then allows you to cut them all out. And if you've got, say, 16 ribs, you can make one pattern and that will make you 16 ribs. Make you 100 ribs, 1,000 ribs. And if for any reason in the future you built the model and you crashed it and you've got to rebuild the wing, you've got the pattern. Just pull the pattern out, draw around, build a new wing. So anyway, let's see what happens. So what do we do? So we get the plan, we get something underneath that's hard, and underneath that is a piece of cardboard. But that piece of cardboard came out of the kitchen cupboard, had some powdered soup in it that the wife likes, and so I just discarded it. So what we're going to do is we're now going to take a pencil and we're going to draw around that rib. Okay, and we know this is R2, so we go R2 on there, and it's a 1/16, and we just draw around it. That's all we've got to do, just draw around it. Okay, well obviously you've got to be a little bit careful, but you will get a carbon copy of that rib on a piece of cardboard that you can use over and over again. I mean, if you've got a full workshop and all the machinery and everything else, you could make a metal copy which will basically last forever. I don't know why you'd want to do that, but you know, unless you're going to go into mass production, if you think enough people are going to buy it. But there you are. So put the cuts in there. There we go. Nearly done. I know my hands are in the way. And now I need a ruler, because I know this is a flat edge, to make it 10 times easier. And now I'll do the same thing for R1. Here we go. There we are. I'm not talking because I'm actually concentrating on what I'm doing. Right, so let's see what happens there. Wow, look at that. There's your pattern. So all you're going to do, carefully cut it out with a very sharp knife, offer it back up to the drawing, make sure it's correct, and there's your template, there's your pattern. Easy as that. Okay, so I'm now going to cut away and off camera, and I'll show you how they turn out. Right, I've cut them out. Here they are. There's R1, all ready to go. Here is R2, all ready to go. And it's just normal cardboard. So you place them over the plan. I just check that they're correct. Okay, and I can see that this is actually correct. R1, perfect fit. So there you go. So